What if the cold was not always silent? What if the ice did not forget? Beneath the veil of Antarctica, that sacred white wound, wrapped tight in the robes of time, there is a stillness deeper than death, and older than memory. Not absence, but containment. Not silence, but a breath held for epochs. It is the end of the world, and the beginning. A continent without name in the ancient tongues, untouched by the march of empire, invisible to the cartographers of conquest. And yet, it has always been there, waiting. Watch spears, etched in wind and crystallized frost, speak of a land older than the oceans, encased in a sarcophagus of stone, its contents sealed by covenant, not chance. In the time before maps, when the world was sung, not drawn, when the sky had not yet fractured and the stars still walked among men, there were those who spoke of a realm below the Southern Cross, a place where the earth opened her bones, and the blood of forgotten gods ran in icy veins. But memory is a fragile flame. What was once recitation became rumor. What was once sacred became secret. And what was once known was made forbidden. The ancients left hints, not in language, but in symbol. The only truth that survives flood and fire. In stones arranged with sacred geometry, in monuments cast to mirror constellations, in old maps with new truths, and in one, drawn in ink and mystery by a sailor of the Ottoman tide. The veil was torn, the shape that should not be known, rendered centuries before its first discovery, a land uniced, its coastline precise, its soul unbound. How could he have seen it? Save through the eyes of those who came before. The ice was not always here. There was once forest, once river. A greening breath across a land, now locked in white silence. But the silence is not absence. It is mourning, mourning for what was buried, not by nature, but by design. The first explorers called it desolate, lifeless. They did not hear the pulse beneath. They did not see the lines in the frost that formed, not randomly, but in right angles and mirrored symmetry. Shapes that the earth does not make, unless guided. Forms that mimic the work of men, or of something older than men. They flew over its endless white and saw shadows, too sharp, too exact, triangles where there should be chaos. Ridges rising like temples from beneath the frost. They said they were natural. They said erosion had shaped them, but the air above those peaks is heavy, and the snow does not fall quite right. There are places where compasses lose their mind. There are ridges that echo when no voice speaks. And in the stillness, the wind speaks languages no throat could form. It is not empty. It is sealed. As technology grows and the sky becomes a mirror, we see what we were not meant to see. Images captured from above show corners and corridors, lines and voids. And in the midst of the white, an eye that does not blink. A structure too symmetrical, a doorway too tall, cut clean into the mountain's flesh, as if by a hand not bound to time. And near it, others. Openings that vanish and reappear with the turning of the sun, as if shifting in rhythm with memory itself. Some speak of stairs that lead down, steps too wide for mortal feet. Others whisper of tunnels that breathe, exhaling steam where no heat should be. But to speak of such things is heresy. The treaty forbids more than war. It forbids knowledge. It forbids access. It forbids memory. 12 nations gathered and swore upon the ice. A pact unlike any other in the age of men. No weapons, no claims, no eyes too deep. In the heart of the Cold War, peace was found only here, where the frost is thicker than suspicion, and the silence swallows all agendas. Ask why. Ask what needs protecting. Ask what needs hiding. Antarctica is not merely cold, it is quarantined. And in its center, there is weight. Not the weight of snow or mountain, but of will. Something holds, something resists. The satellites circle, but see nothing. The drills reach, but are repelled. The scientists measure, but do not understand. And yet the ice remembers. In the deep layers, kilometers below the surface, lie bubbles of ancient air, trapped songs of climates long past. And within them, anomalies. Times when the world turned without axis. Times when the forests grew in darkness, times when the earth sang a different song, and Antarctica was not the end, but the origin. Some say the poles have wandered, that the skin of the earth shifts, pulling continents into cold exile, a tilt, a tremor, a turning of the sphere. But others say the land itself was moved, not by Earth, but by those who walk between epochs. Not erosion, but rearrangement, not evolution, but evacuation. If that is true, then what lies beneath is not just forest, not just fossils, but the ruins of memory itself. A city turned to stone and buried beneath time. A throne room entombed in crystal, still humming. A vault, sealed not with stone, but with song. And so the ice holds, not to preserve, but to imprison. But even in prison, truth stirs. There are creatures seen beneath the waves, pale, immense, with forms too human to be animal, and too silent to be machine. Eyes like mirrors, skin like milk. They rise and vanish. No sound, no wake. They are not legends. They are witnesses. Some call them Ningjin, others do not name them at all. They are watchers, or perhaps they are remnants, or perhaps they are warnings. The oldest explorers felt it. Shackleton spoke of a fourth presence, invisible, uncounted, walking beside him across the desolate ice. He did not speak of fear, only presence, only the knowing that he was not alone. He was not the first, he was not the last. And in this silence where snow falls like ash and the sun forgets to rise, the watchers remain, waiting, not for us, but for return. This is not just a place, it is a memory so vast, the earth itself cannot speak it, only the ice remembers, and the cracks have begun to form. The mountain rose from the ice like a blade from a wound. Its sides were too clean, its peak too sharp, its faces, 4 of them, met at angles too precise to be called accidental. Not a hill, not a ridge, but a shape carved with intent. In the aerial silence, its silhouette burned into the snow below, a triangle among chaos, a geometry that did not belong. They called it a nunatak, a word designed to dismiss, to anchor the miraculous in the mundane. They said it was natural. They said wind and Thor had sculpted it. That time had chiseled its symmetry from wild stone. But nature does not love right angles. Nature weeps in curves, not corners. This was no accident, and it was not alone. Scattered across the Ellsworth Mountains, beneath the vast white canopy, were echoes of the same shape, ridges with mirrored faces, hills with unnaturally square bases, snow that draped like a veil over something waiting beneath. The sky had betrayed the earth. Satellites captured the pattern. The camera did not blink. A network, faint and buried, emerged from the whiteness. Aligned structures, coordinates that whispered intelligence, lines that defied erosion, angles that mirrored the stars. And beneath the snow, depths unknowable, was a silence that seemed measured, not empty. Others had seen such shapes before, not here, but far across the world, under different suns, in deserts and jungles and lost plateaus, Egypt, Peru, Mexico, wide bases, sloping sides, altars built to the heavens, pyramids, temples of frequency and alignment, structures too grand for the age ascribed to them. They carried the same language as the peaks buried here, beneath the ice. But these southern pyramids had no name. They had not been recorded, not by Herodotus, not by the priests of Teotihuacan. They stood unsung, cloaked in the snow of 10,000 years, speaking only in shape and echo. If they were not built by those we remember, then who? And if not remembered, then what was forgotten? The symmetry was not symbolic, it was function. In Egypt, the pyramids align with the belt of Orion. In Mexico, with the Pleiades. In Antarctica, where no eye had looked before, the structures spoke of the same mind, the same architecture. Not parallel development, but inheritance. Not coincidence, but continuity. The blueprint passed hand to hand, epoch to epoch, memory to myth. Some say all pyramids are born from the same dream. That the ancients remembered not what to build, but why. That they were not monuments, but machines. Devices of resonance, of containment, of warning. Perhaps those beneath the ice serve the same purpose. Or perhaps a darker one. Geologists tried to explain freeze-thaw cycles, erosion patterns, glacial stress, but their voices trembled against the wind. The wind that echoed off 4 identical faces and did not scatter. the wind that carried a hum only instruments could hear. There were stories, quiet ones, buried in dispatches and footnotes, researchers who went further than they should have, who returned, changed, or did not return at all. One spoke of footsteps in the snow, perfectly spaced, leading to a ridge and ending at a sheer cliff. No return path, no explanation. Another claimed to have found a metallic object lodged in the ice, too symmetrical, too deliberate. It was taken. He was reassigned. He never spoke again. A third drew a map in frost on a window. Circles and triangles. Intersections no satellite had shown. He whispered, "It's a city." Then he vanished. There is an order beneath the chaos. And the mountains are not mountains. They are markers. They are seals. In the old stories, Sumerian, Egyptian, Vedic, there were watchers, beings not bound by flesh, but by geometry. Guardians of gates, keepers of thresholds between realms. Their temples were always triangular, their presence always hidden in plain sight. Perhaps the pyramids are not tombs, perhaps they are doors. The Ellsworth structures are not alone. Across Antarctica, new formations emerge, where snow recedes, sharp lines remain, rectangles carved into the mountainside, massive steps ascending into shadow, caves with thresholds too high for human hands. And the symmetry is always there. Not accidental, not aesthetic, deliberate. A language written in stone and ice. There are those who suggest the ice came after, that the structures were built in a time before the freeze, that what we call Antarctica was once warm, green, alive, that these peaks were temples, and these valleys were cities. Then came the cold, not by season, but by sentence. The continent was buried, entombed, in silence, not destroyed, hidden, perhaps to protect, or perhaps to imprison. The concept of hidden knowledge is not new. Atlantis, Mu, Hyperborea, names given to memories too large for history to hold. Civilizations erased not by war, but by water. Not by forgetfulness, but by force. Antarctica fits the pattern. A continent outside reach, a continent wiped clean, and yet it resists forgetting. The shapes remain, the maps whisper, and beneath the ice the bones of a story press upward, aching to be remembered. Why would pyramids be built here, at the edge of the world? Why align them with stars unseen? Unless the world was once different, unless this was once the center, a reversal of map and meaning, the forgotten axis, a throne turned to stone. Some say the builders were not men, that they were the Anunnaki, or the sons of Atlas, that they fled a dying world and seeded this one with stone, to guide the future through the coming night. Others say the builders were men, but men born in a different age before the flood, before the shift, men who spoke with gods and built with sound, men who knew the names of the stars not through telescopes but memory. Whoever they were, they are not gone. Their shapes remain, their lines remain, their silence remains, and beneath the snow, the peaks still hum, waiting. There was a time when the wind through these valleys did not howl, but rustle, not across ice but through leaves. The great continent we now call lifeless once breathed in green. Its soil drank the rain. Its rivers curled and carved the land like silver serpents, and upon its banks, trees once stood tall, proud, and rooted in warmth. Before the frost took it, before memory turned to myth. The ice is not eternal. Beneath it lie the remains of forests that have turned to stone, their trunks still upright, as if resisting the burial. Leaves pressed flat in frozen earth, like sighs, spores and pollen entombed like prayers in glass. The land holds its breath, but it remembers. In the Beardmore region, not far from the pole, they found fragments of beech trees, not as seeds, but as fossilized veins of life, still whispering chlorophyll dreams into the snow above. Upright, unyielding, fossil trees. They had roots, they had direction, they grew in warmth, where now only death lingers. Farther south, along coastlines now buried in ancient white, more trees were found, standing in silence. Some reached 7 meters high, still rooted in the same soil they once fed upon. The earth had not moved. The trees had not wandered. The cold had arrived after them, uninvited, consuming. These are not stories. These are not symbols. They are fossils. Proof that the ice came late, not early. And with this proof comes a question that shatters time. If trees grew here, and rivers ran, what else lived on this land before it froze? Who walked among those forests? Who followed those rivers to their source? Was there memory before the ice? Memory that breathed, built and burned? Science does not like the question. It folds its arms. It speaks of warm epochs, of climate shifts, of natural warming. And they are not wrong. The planet changes, yes. Ice comes and goes. The axis tilts. The sun leans. But there is something deeper. A rhythm not of seasons, but of resets. The past does not disappear. It is rewritten, buried beneath new chapters of ice and fire. Beneath Antarctica's crust lie pollen records, tens of millions of years old, buried in sediment. Layered in silence, they speak of temperate rainforests, not jungles of chaos, but balanced, thriving ecosystems. Ferns, evergreens, conifers, trees that could survive polar night, because there was no polar night. The sun did not forget these lands. Not yet. But then came the shift. The glaciation was slow, not a fall, but a drowning, like a blanket pulled slowly over the face of the land. Light dimmed. Temperature fell. The trees held on, decade by decade, until finally they froze. They cracked. They fossilized. They disappeared from the surface. But not from the Earth's memory. Below the ice, the green breath still lingers. It is possible, even probable, that parts of the land remained warm longer than we are told. That even as the edges iced over, the heart still beat. That life persisted, perhaps even flourished, long after science declared it dead. The question then is simple. Was there time? Was there space? Was there life? Not moss, not microbe, but mind. Was there a civilization that called this place home before it was buried? A people who watched the sky shift, the air cool, the snows come and fled, or fell, or were silenced? Mainstream thought recoils. It says no. It insists that Homo sapiens had not yet arrived, that the ice predates us, that the land froze before intelligence could walk upon it. But the fossils say otherwise. They speak not of timelines, but of possibility. And possibility, once opened, cannot be closed. There are stories not modern but ancient, of a land to the south, green and vast, home to a people of knowledge and stillness. The Greeks called it Terra Australis Incognita, the unknown southern land. The Vedic hymns spoke of a continent of light, fallen beneath the ocean of time. The Hopi speak of the third world, shattered by ice and silence. And then there is the map, drawn in 1513, by a sailor of empire and mysticism, the Piri-Reis map. It shows a coastline, not jagged and broken by ice, but smooth like bone revealed. The shape of Antarctica as it truly is, not as we see it, but as it was before the snow. How could he know? How could a man of sails and stars draw what only satellites would later confirm? Unless the map was not his, but inherited. Unless he merely copied what had already been drawn, long ago, by those who had seen the land as it once was. A continent not of death, but of design. Some say the map is coincidence, that it resembles, but does not prove. Others argue it is proof incarnate, that it came from a civilization capable of global mapping, seafaring, and remembrance. A culture lost to the flood, to the axis shift, to the slow turning of Earth's skin. If this is true, then the forests beneath the ice are more than trees. They are witnesses, and what they saw has not yet been told. There are whispers of a structure near the Doubleday Glacier, a foundation of stone, with columns rising like teeth from the frost. Some who saw it said it looked Roman, even Greek, yet older. Massive blocks. Carvings swallowed by time. No photographs. Only words. And the words were buried too. Other claims speak of coins found in the ice. Strange markings. Animal symbols no culture has ever claimed. Discredited, dismissed, erased. But still, the stories persist. Because the land will not be quiet. Because the ice cannot forget. The transformation of Antarctica was not local. It was not gradual. It was a command. Something changed. Not just the weather, but the order of the world. The climate shifted. Yes, But the Earth tilted. Its axis moved. Its balance was altered. True polar wonder, they call it. The crust itself, sliding over the mantle like loose skin, pulling continents from sun to shadow. If it happened once, it can happen again. And if it happened then, it explains everything. A continent ripped from temperate breath to polar tomb in the span of generations. A civilization, frozen, not slowly, but suddenly. There are legends of floods, of fire from the sky, of the earth shaking, of memory wiped clean. Not myth, but coded history. Passed through the mouths of priests and prophets, wrapped in metaphor so it could survive the ages. And now, only now, are we beginning to read it again. The past is not behind us. It is beneath us. And it is waiting for the thaw, waiting for us to remember. There are places where the snow does not fall evenly, where the white veil splits, revealing lines that should not be there, where darkness forms not from shadow, but from the absence of logic. In the satellite age, the sky became a mirror, and the mirror began to crack. High above East Antarctica, a rectangular void was revealed, cut into the side of a mountain framed in ice, too tall for wind to carve, too perfect for time to sculpt. A shape of intention, a mouth, not of stone, but of silence, a doorway to something not meant for human eyes. Its proportions were unnatural. Height without erosion, width without collapse, and around it the snow bore no scars, no drift, no disruption, as if the land itself had yielded, as if the mountain had opened willingly. They said it was a trick of the light, that melting and freezing could create illusion, but the door remained. Others appeared, a cave on a southern island, hidden in the shadow of a snow-laden peak, wide, deep, its interior swallowed even light. But it was not the darkness that unsettled the watchers. It was the stair, lines, rising in even rhythm, up the slope, and into the void, parallel, measured. Stone lips of an impossible ascent. They did not crumble. They did not drift. They waited, as if footsteps had once worn them smooth, as if footsteps would return. No known process of erosion or sediment layering could explain them. And none ever truly tried. The explanations were always insufficient. Freeze-thaw cycles, wind abrasion, glacial retraction. But stone does not align itself. Ice does not build platforms. Nature does not dream in geometry. These formations breathe unease, not because they are grand, but because they are familiar. They echo our own architecture, our own instincts. But older, deeper, not mimicry, but origin. Perhaps we did not invent steps. Perhaps we remembered them. Some say the openings are natural, that they are hollow ridges or collapsed ice tubes, that snow, with enough time, can carve a cathedral. But they are always the same shape, always the same angle, always aligned to cardinal points, as if obeying a law outside the sky. They appear, they vanish, then they return, altered, as if the land itself is breathing in cycles. There are reports of formations seen once, photographed, and then gone the next season, reburied, lost, or worse, changed, wider, deeper, with features that were not there before. Others claim to see lights, blue, pale green, soft violet, pulsing from within. Not reflections, not aurora, but rhythm, a beat behind the curtain. Are these the entrances to something deeper? Are these thresholds? Or are they lures? The ancients told stories of gates to the underworld. Not metaphors, places, real, sacred, and feared. Caves where spirits crossed, tunnels where the gods slept. Chambers that echoed the voices of the dead. In the Tibetan mountains, they called it Shambhala. In the Mayan jungle, Sabalba. To the Greeks, the Cimmerian realm, land of perpetual twilight. All spoke of entrances hidden in wild lands, sealed by frost or fire, marked by unnatural stone. Why would Antarctica be different? If the Earth has bones, perhaps these are its joints. Hinges to realms not drawn on any map, and the doorways carved into its flesh are not errors, but invitations, or warnings. Beneath the ice, the temperature is not what it should be. Heat rises from depths unexplained, a warmth that defies the cold above. Scientists say it comes from radioactive decay, from pressure, from ancient volcanic scars, but the warmth pulses. It is not constant. It is not random, it flickers like breath. And where the warmth touches the ice, rivers are born. Rivers that no eye has seen, that run through darkness beneath the frozen crust. They link lake to lake, void to void, in a labyrinth no human has walked. It is a hidden circulatory system, and at its center, the Lake of Silence, Lake Vostok, sealed beneath 4 kilometers of ice, isolated for over 20 million years, untouched by light, or air, or history. When the drill pierced its vault, the water surged upward, not slowly, not softly, but with pressure, as if something beneath had waited too long. Samples were tainted. No clean result. But whispers said life was found. Microscopic, unusual, unmapped, and perhaps not alive. Vostok is not unique. There are hundreds of lakes beneath the Antarctic shell. Some shallow, some vast, some blinking in and out of existence like breaths, filling and draining in cycles. What feeds them? What connects them? In the hollow beneath the Filchner ice shelf, a boulder was found, covered in life, sponges, filter feeders, organisms that should not be alive in such silence. There was no light, no nearby nutrient flow, and yet they fed on what? From where? Even in the darkness, something sustains. The caves, the steps, the doorways, they may not lead to the past. They may be part of the present. A living system, a structure, a city buried not in ruin but in slumber. If this is a vault, who sealed it? And if it is a temple, who do they worship? There is no way to know, because we are not allowed to dig too deep, to look too far. There are zones off limits, areas unexplored, flights that must not pass overhead. The Earth, in all its vastness, does not restrict itself, but men do. And the most restricted place of all is a land of snow and shapes, where geometry pierces through the blizzard and silence waits behind stone mouths. There are those who have stood near these formations and felt it, a pressure, a presence, a certainty that something beneath the feet is awake, not in rage, not in love, but in attention. It sees, it knows, it remembers. And when the ice melts further, when the doorways widen, when the stairs once again feel footsteps, what will rise? And what will remain? They said the earth once sang a different song, a lower note, long and slow, vibrating through the stone like the hum of a buried choir. And on that frequency, across the skin of the world, the ancients built, not randomly, not in separation, but in chorus, from the banks of the Nile to the hills of the Andes, from the Indus to the Yucatan. They raised monuments in alignment, aligned not only to the stars, but to each other. Echoes cast in stone, temples tuned to the same invisible chord. Pyramids, always pyramids, not as tombs, not as palaces, but as memory. And across that sacred architecture, one structure remains the most mysterious, not because of what it shows, but because of when it appeared. A map, drawn in 1513 by an admiral of a forgotten empire, Piri Reis. Upon the skin of old animal hide, he inked the coasts of the known world. But in the southern reaches, he drew what should not be known, a land not yet discovered. A coastline beneath the ice, a shape visible only from the sky, or from time before memory. Antarctica, not as it is, but as it was. No modern ice, no glacier-worn edges, just land, clean and bare, shaped as it truly is beneath the white. How could he have known? He was not alone on his ship, not alone in his knowledge. He confessed in writing that his sources were older maps, older scrolls, inherited wisdoms copied by hands long vanished. Greek, Phoenician, Babylonian, maps that had survived flood and fire. The question arises like steam from sacred ground. Who made the first map? And who showed them the shape of a continent that had been frozen for over 10,000 years? Geologists examined the Piri Reis map. They saw not just accuracy, but impossibility. The coastline it displays matches seismic data of land buried under more than a mile of ice. It aligns with the last ice-free period of East Antarctica, a time when human civilization, according to textbooks, had not yet begun. And yet, the map exists. It is not legend. It is leather and ink. A document of heresy, preserved in a museum, ignored by time, but not erased. Some say it proves a global civilization once existed, with ships and stars, cartography and memory, a people who knew the earth whole, who watched the poles shift, who saw the frost begin, and who drew the last memory of a warm Antarctica before it vanished under skyfall. Others suggest something older still, that the knowledge was not human, that it came from those who walk behind the veil. Theories gather like storms around the name of Charles Hapgood, a scholar of maps, a seeker of truth. He said the Piri Reis map, and others like it, came from a lost source, a civilization wiped from history but remembered in fragments. He called it the shifting of the crust, that the entire skin of the earth moved, suddenly, dragging continents from temperate zones into polar night. It would explain the trees. It would explain the ruins. It would explain the map. But it does not explain why. Why shift the earth? What force could tilt a world? He was not alone in asking. Prophets long dead spoke of such a time, of a reversal, of a falling sky, and a turning sea. Edgar Cayce, the sleeping voice of visions, spoke from trance of a land beneath the ice, a land that would return. He called it Atlantis, but he meant Antarctica. He said the poles had not always been where they are, that the earth had once stood differently, and when it changed, by choice or by cataclysm, the lands of light became lands of night. The cities drowned, not in water, but in ice. He saw it return. He said one day the frozen south would thaw, and life would walk again where the trees once grew. That buried beneath the ice was the memory of man before man, a people of light, of sound, of knowing. No one believed him, but the ice continues to crack, and what lies beneath does not sleep. There are maps older than Piri Reis, fragments, carvings, glyphs, some only whispers. All speak of a southern land, hidden, forbidden, ancient. The Maya placed it in their cosmology, the Hindus in their Mount Meru, the Egyptians in their Duat, a realm of judgment, a place of memory. Even Plato, speaking through Solon, described a land beyond the pillars, a civilization of great power, fallen in a day and a night, sunk by water, sealed by silence. The ice is not water, but it is silence, and perhaps the difference is not so great. In modern times, radar pierced the crust. Not far from Princess Elizabeth Land, they found something. Not rock, not ice, but geometry. A pattern beneath the frost, sharp, symmetrical, stretching for kilometers. A grid. A lattice. A structure. Not natural, not chaotic, but planned. It has not been named. It has not been excavated. They say the data is inconclusive, but the shape remains, as if the land is wrapped not in geology, but in design. Could the entire continent be a vault? Could the ice itself be the seal? Is this not just a forgotten land, but a forbidden one? There are whispers that in ancient times, the earth was not divided, that what we call continents now were once connected, not only by land, but by culture, by mind, by purpose, that the world sang in harmony, and that Antarctic was the tuning fork, the source. And then, silence. The covenant was broken, and the continent was buried. Not by accident, by decree. A flood can erase, a fire can consume, but only ice preserves, and preservation is not mercy, it is imprisonment. We were not meant to find it, not yet, but the sky betrayed the seal. The satellites saw through the veil, and the lines, the shapes, the map, they whisper the truth. We are not the first, and the snow will not hold forever. It bleeds. From the glacier's white flank it spills, not with fury, but with slow, deliberate certainty, a waterfall the colour of rusted blood, flowing not in torrents but in a measured pulse. It seeps like a wound that will not close. 5 stories high, deep red, carving crimson across a land of eternal white. They called it Blood Falls, but the land never named it. It simply opened. Long before it wept, this place had been ocean. The salt still remembers. As the waters retreated, and the cold claimed its throne, pockets of brine remained, trapped beneath the pressure of rising ice. Time closed the lid, darkness sealed the chamber. The ocean was forgotten, but not gone. 400 meters beneath the glacier, That ancient ocean still stirs. No sunlight, no oxygen, no air, and yet, life. When the borehole reached it, the lake responded. The pressure burst upward, not with rage, but with urgency, a cry released, after 5 million years of silence. It was not clean. It was not still. It carried iron, salt, and shadow. And within it, something more. Microorganisms, born of darkness, feeding on iron and sulfur, breathing not air but memory. They had never seen the sun. They had never needed it. They did not evolve to survive. They simply remained. Extremophiles. They were called life forms built for the impossible, but their presence was not adaptation. It was resistance. They had waited, as if the blood was not only a chemical event, but a signal, a reckoning. Scientists spoke of rust, of oxidation, of ancient salt, but the red ran too deep, its color too rich, its symbolism too precise. In a land of ice and silence, the glacier bled, not by accident, but by ritual. What is it bleeding for? Or whom? There are other lakes, hidden beneath kilometers of ice. Lake Mercer, Lake Willans, Lake Enigma, names given by men to things they do not understand. Each one sealed for millions of years, each one warm beneath the cold, liquid in the heart of frost. When they are breached, they do not die. They awaken. Within them, carpets of microbial life, mats that breathe, that pulse. Some form columns, others grow like coral. These are not simple colonies, they are structures, communities, ecosystems born in absolute darkness, in silence, under pressures that would crush bone. Some suggest higher life may exist there, not theory. Evidence, tardigrades, worms, ghost flesh things that do not belong. They are not alien, but they are not ours. In one lake, the mats formed spirals. No one could explain it. In another, the organisms were found binding together, not for survival, but for form, patterns, groupings, behavior without biology, and some fed on others. A war beneath the ice, a kingdom unseen. Above them, we call it wilderness, but beneath, it is civilization, not like ours, but no less deliberate. There are those who say the falls are not just geological, that they are vents, pressure valves from a deeper machine, that beneath the crust of Antarctica is a system, old, functional, breathing. Not metaphor, not metaphor. If the ice is the skin of a body, the falls are its wounds. There are theories that the red is not just rust, but residue from engines, from systems, from biologies, so old they no longer match our definitions. A leak from an ancient lab, or from something buried deeper, older, vast, a city, perhaps, a reactor, a consciousness. And blood falls is its whisper, a warning to look away. But we look, and the deeper we dig, the stranger it becomes. Under the George VI ice shelf, after a collapse they found, not silence, but community. Octopuses, giant sea spiders, corals the size of trees, all thriving in pitch black, sustained by deep currents, and something else. What feeds them? What roots them there? And how old are they? Some of the animals have no known lifespan. They do not die, they simply exist. Elsewhere, under another ice shelf, a stone was found, not special, except that it was covered in fixed organisms, stationary, filter feeders, but they were 260 kilometers from the nearest known food source. The currents were not fast enough, the nutrients not sufficient, and yet they lived. This is not coincidence. It is system. But it is not ours. Scientists speak of hydrothermal vents, of isolated ecosystems, of evolutionary accidents. But accident does not repeat, does not organize, does not speak. Because this is speech, in form, in life, in blood. The red waterfall is not just iron and salt. It is the planet's memory made visible. The glacier bleeds as the Earth remembers, and it bleeds in the oldest place, the coldest place, the most silenced place. A continent that holds 90% of Earth's ice, and something else. This is not the first time Antarctica has spoken. It is only the first time we've listened, and the blood continues to run. They came in secret, not in myth, but in record. Not long ago, but within the reach of memory. Men with flags, insignias and intentions cloaked as science, an expedition not of discovery, but of claim. The year was 1938. The ship, Schwabenland, its destination, the last blank corner of the world. They called it No Schwabenland, New Swabia. But the land did not care for names. They flew over the ice with seaplanes, dropping markers, darts of aluminum stamped with the symbol of empire, the black cross, the swastika. Their purpose, they said, was whale oil. Territory, supply lines for a war not yet declared. But the war was not only on Earth. Some believed the Nazis sought more than oil. They sought power older than history. Whispers among the higher circles spoke of something buried beneath the ice. A relic. A technology. A covenant. Something not German, not even human. They mapped over 600,000 square kilometers. Photographed it in color, rare for the time. But many of the photographs disappeared. Files lost. Documents sealed. And those that surfaced told only part of the story. They left. But the land did not forget them. Rumours began to spread after the war, of hidden bases, submarines with unspoken cargo, U-boats arriving months after the war's end, their commanders silent, their logs incomplete. U-530, U-977, Argentina, Antarctica, what were they carrying? Or whom? The story darkened. The theory grew. They had built a fortress beneath the ice. A final stronghold, untouched by defeat. A refuge where science met myth. A place to continue the work. They called it No Proof, Only Fragments. Recollections. A survivor's tale, told in whispers. A transmission lost in static. Coordinates etched into frost, then erased. Some say the base was carved into the Schirmacher oasis, an ice-free anomaly in the heart of white. Temperatures higher than they should be. Lakes that never freeze. Even in winter the snow does not settle right. Other nations now research there, but none speak of what came before. Then came. The war was over. But something lingered. The United States launched Operation High Jump, the largest military expedition ever sent to the South Pole. 13 ships, 4,700 men, dozens of aircraft. A mission cloaked in science, but cloaked too thickly. Officially, it was a test. Training. Mapping. But it moved like war. Admiral Richard E. Byrd led the operation. A veteran of polar expeditions. A man of the old code. But when the mission ended weeks earlier than planned, and the silence that followed thickened, questions arose. Some said aircraft were lost. Some said encounters occurred. Some said the ice fought back. Byrd returned, changed. In a South American interview, he warned that future wars could come from the poles, that America must remain vigilant of threats flying from icy skies. No one knew what he meant. No one wanted to ask. Then came the diary. Found. Forged. Forgotten. A document surfaced. Said to be his private account. It spoke of a flight beyond the veil. Of green valleys in the midst of ice. Of machinery beyond comprehension. Of beings tall, radiant, and silent. They did not speak with mouths, but with thought. They warned him of mankind's fire, of our path, of what waits when silence breaks. He was told to return, to remember, to speak, but the world was not ready. And so the diary vanished, declared false, filed away. Yet the whispers grew. Agartha, that was the name they gave it. Not from Byrd, but from legends far older. A realm beneath the crust, a kingdom of the hollow earth, not empty, but full. A world within the world. Hidden, watching, waiting. The expedition ended, but the ice remained. So did the rumours. What was the Reich truly searching for? Some say they found it. Others say they were merely pawns, used by older forces. There were societies within the regime, cults of origin, of ancestry, of the vril. They spoke of an ancient energy, a force older than time, channeled through blood, through breath, through geometry. They believed in a race before the races. Beings of light, beings of fire, and they believed Antarctica was the gate. In the years that followed, the ice grew quiet, but the silence was false. Satellite images revealed lines too straight, shadows too symmetrical, trails in the snow that ended in structures too sharp for wind to shape. Then came the Cold War. And Antarctica was no longer just frozen land, it was a sealed chamber. In 1959 the Antarctic Treaty was signed. Peaceful use only, no weapons, no conflict, no claim. 12 nations agreed, in the midst of arms races, nuclear tension, and global division, to silence, to secrecy, to sealing off the most remote continent on Earth. Why? What required such unity? What did they fear? Neuschwabenland remains. A place on the map, a name on the ice, but its meaning is buried beneath layers of denial. Perhaps it was only a myth, a rumour magnified by war. Or perhaps it was real, and still is. Perhaps, beneath the frost, the base remains. Empty, or occupied, or waiting, not for reinforcements, but for release. The ice is not just silence, it is sleep, and sleep too has its end. There is a door not drawn on any map. It is not built of wood, nor guarded by locks. It opens not with keys, but with memory. It is the threshold between the surface and the source. It is called many names, but the oldest is Agartha, not a city, not a place, a realm, a kingdom beneath the crust of the world, not hollow, but hidden, not fiction, but forgotten, not myth, but memory denied. The stories stretch across continents and empires. In the East, it is spoken of in whispers by monks who keep secrets older than their temples. In Tibet, it lies beneath the sacred mountains, the last refuge of light when the world above descends into darkness. In Norse legend, it is the underworld, not a hell, but a root system, a sacred grove beneath the bark of reality. The Greeks called it Hades, but they misunderstood. The Celts called it the otherworld, shimmering just beyond the frost. All point downward. All speak of an interior more alive than the surface. It is here that the whispers of Admiral Byrd return, not as rumour, but as revelation. He flew beyond the reach of recorded sky, past the known borders of ice, and claimed to have seen what cannot be seen, valleys green and glowing, animals thought extinct, and a light not of sun, but of something deeper. And then, be tall, pale, not fragile, but ancient. Eyes luminous, not with reflection, but with knowledge. They spoke without sound. Their presence did not oppress. It enveloped. They told him the earth was changing, that the surface had chosen a path of fire, that the weapons of men, the splitting of atoms, the ripping of the sky had disturbed the balance, that the silence was breaking too soon. He was not harmed. He was warned. And he was returned. Some believe the diary is a forgery. Others say it was his confession, veiled in secrecy, hidden by the very hands that demanded silence. Regardless, the vision remained. A realm beneath, a sanctuary, a throne hidden from the storm. Agartha, not built in time, but before it, not beneath us, but within us. Legends say it is powered by a central sun, a source of warmth and light that sustains the inner world, that the people of Agartha did not fall. They retreated, preserved their knowledge, watched through the ice, intervened only when necessary, and they are not gone. They are beneath the continent we call dead. They walk its halls of stone, under layers of crystal and silence, waiting for the balance to return. Is it madness or memory? Modern science cannot speak of Agartha. It has no instruments to measure myth, no equations to solve prophecy, and yet the symbols persist, in dreams, in ruins, in the geometry of the ancient world, in Egypt's underworld journey of the sun, in the Hopi legends of the ant people, in the Mesoamerican stories of those who emerged from caves after the flood. Every tale ends the same. The surface burns, the earth shakes, the light fades, and the people return from below. The Vril, spoken of by German mystics, were said to be descendants of Agartha, keepers of a force older than physics, not electricity, not magnetism, but life itself, a frequency, a hum that binds mind to matter. Through this, they claim to contact beings not just of this world, but of the ones behind it. If such power existed, where would it hide? Not in cities of glass, but in vaults of stone, beneath Antarctica, where no eyes dare look. The hollow earth theory has been ridiculed, laughed out of textbooks, but beneath the laughter, the idea remains. Not that the earth is empty, but that it is not as it seems. That beneath our feet lies a second Genesis, A memory kept alive, unspoiled by conquest. A record. A warning. Some speak of entrances at the poles. Satellite imagery obscures them. Flights are redirected. Explorers disappear. Others return with nothing but silence in their eyes. It is not forbidden, because it is false. It is forbidden because it is too real. If Agartha exists, then history must be rewritten. If Bird's account holds even a shadow of truth, then the story of mankind is fractured. And perhaps, the end is not the end, but the return. In the Hindu epics, when the Kali Yuga ends, the dark age we now inhabit, the world is not destroyed, but renewed, not by fire, but by emergence. The ones below rise again, not to conquer, to remind. The ice thins, the magnetosphere shifts, the sky flickers with new lights. Something is waking. Whether Agartha is a place, a people, or a memory made flesh, it matters not. It waits, beneath the weight of snow and denial, beneath our need to forget, beneath Antarctica. It waits. The ocean around Antarctica does not roar, it whispers, not the sound of waves, but of movement beneath. Slow, immense, indifferent, as if something vast turns in slumber far below the black surface. Something older than species, older than breath. There are no fish here that school, no birds that sing, only silence and shade. The Japanese sailors spoke first. In the endless white horizon of the southern seas, they saw something rise. Not a wave, not an iceberg, but a body. Smooth, pale, monolithic. For a moment, it hung between worlds, half formed from the deep, and then returned, without ripple, into the dark. They called it the Ningen. It means human, but this was no man. 30 meters long, sometimes more. A body like frozen flesh, arms where there should be fins, fingers, a face, blank, expressionless, with two small eyes that reflect nothing. It moved without sound, without struggle. Some said it watched them, others said it didn't need to. Over the years, sightings grew. Among research vessels, on remote icebreakers, even from satellites, white shapes in the water, distinct from ice, moving with purpose. Some dismissed them. They say mirage, whale, light play on the ice. But the descriptions are always the same, and the eye's always wrong. There is no explanation, only recurrence. The Ningen may be a remnant, a survivor from the warm age, when Antarctica bloomed with trees and rivers, or perhaps it is not a creature at all, but a sentinel, a guardian left behind by those who built beneath the ice, a watcher of the surface, or worse, a warning. It is not alone. In 2016, above the cold waters near Deception Island, satellite imagery showed a shadow beneath the waves, long, coiling, moving against the current. Too large for known whales, too solid for kelp, too alive to be denied. They said it was the Kraken, a myth reborn in a sea that remembers. The Norse spoke of it, a beast with arms wide enough to encircle a ship, eyes like suns, breath that could cool the storm. The Greeks feared it as Scylla, the Phoenicians mapped it in negative space, always waiting, always beneath. Science points to the colossal squid, real, rare, and immense. A creature with eyes the size of shields and tentacles lined with hooks. But the squid does not rise, it does not breach, it does not stare back. These things do, and then vanish. Some believe they are bioforms, evolved in isolation, beneath the polar crust, beneath the subglacial lakes where warmth and pressure create conditions no surface species could endure. Others go further. They speak of ancient DNA, dormant beneath the permafrost, reawakening as the ice recedes, of forms not from this cycle, but from the last. Creatures not descended, but preserved. What dies in heat, survives in cold, and the cold has kept its secrets well. There is more. On the slopes above the sea, researchers have found the preserved bodies of seals, mummified, frozen, intact, miles from the ocean, high in the hills, in places no seal could reach, no path, no trail, no sign of struggle, as if they were placed, left, arranged. Why? Theories abound, disorientation, glacial movement, but the patterns remain, too far inland, too many, too perfect in death. Some even face the same direction, Some form lines, ritual, signal, or simply offering. We do not know, but the pattern repeats. And then there are the faces. In satellite photos, high in the eastern ridges, a shape emerges from the snow, not random, not eroded. A visage, eyes, nose, mouth, colossal, as if the land itself wore a mask. As if something buried beneath pressed its face upward, through miles of frozen memory. It is dismissed as pareidolia. The mind sees patterns where there are none. But the symmetry is undeniable, and the shadow falls the same way, year after year. There are other shapes, a trail carved in the ice, ending in a dark object, long, metallic, half-buried. Some call it a craft, others, a trick of light. But the line it leaves in the snow is deep, wide, as if it skidded to rest, or landed. Another, a dome, smooth and white, with a single dark ring at its base, half covered in drift. A satellite anomaly, found once, then lost again. There is no entry on any chart, no acknowledgement, just silence. The Southern Ocean holds no shipping lanes, no ports, no safe harbor, because the sea is not empty, it is watching. And the watchers do not blink. These beings, whether animal, memory or myth, are not intrusions. They are returnings, rising in pace with the thaw, matching our gaze with their own. We look now, with our eyes of metal and cloud. And what looks back is not curious. It is ancient. It is waiting. For the ice to fall away, for the veil to lift. And when it does, what stirs in the deep will not be new. It will be hope. In 1959, 12 nations gathered beneath a veiled sky and signed a silence. It was not a treaty. It was a seal. A pact made, not in hope, but in fear. Untouched, untamed, unclaimed, would remain so. No war, no borders, no drilling, no eyes too deep. They called it peace, but it felt like containment. At a time when the world burned with rivalries, missiles poised, ideologies split, empires dissolving into tension, the greatest powers agreed to something they had never agreed upon before: to look away, to stay out, to let the ice keep its secrets. Why? No other landmass was locked in such agreement. Not the deserts, not the jungles, only here, this white crypt at the edge of the world. It was forbidden, and no one asked why. They said it was for science, that the continent was fragile, that its purity must be preserved. And yet, even science must ask permission. Even researchers must walk only where allowed, dig only where sanctioned, speak only within the circle. There are zones where no aircraft may fly, regions declared off limits, coordinates marked only by silence. Tourists may visit, but only in curated corridors, guided and watched. The true interior remains unseen, untouched, a realm not just unexplored, but untouchable. This is not preservation, it is control, because something is there, something worth hiding, or protecting, or both. The treaty grew into a system: protocols, committees, secretariats, but none of it changes the core truth. We are not meant to know what lies beneath, and the more the ice melts, the more urgent that silence becomes. The continent is warming. The glaciers crack like thunder beneath a closed sky. Ice shelves the size of nations collapse in silence. Valleys once eternal now whisper with running water. The sea rises, and with it the past. Not metaphor, not prophecy, reality. In the ice are trapped the breaths of 1,000,000 years. Layers of air, frozen in strata, holding the chemical record of Earth's moods and memories. Each drill core is a confession. Each bubble a voice. They speak of cycles, warm ages, ice ages, tilts and resets. But this one is different, faster, hungrier. The West Antarctic ice sheet teeters. If it falls, the seas will rise by meters, cities will drown. And beneath the melting crust, ancient valleys emerge, riverbeds, forests, even landscapes untouched for 14 million years. They do not rise with joy. They rise like corpses. Beneath one such rise lies a city-sized structure, unmapped, unseen, its outline caught only by the brief glance of a satellite, angles too clean, grid-like, a surface not of stone but something else. No explanation was given. The image vanished. The silence deepened. And yet the continent still bleeds. not just in its crimson waterfalls, but in invasions. Tiny intruders, foreign spores, creatures carried on boots and breath. A single housefly can become a plague. A seed can crack the code of a frozen ecosystem. The invaders are not deliberate, but they are relentless. A mushroom fly found in a research outpost refused to die. 20 years of resistance. Springtails overtaking hydroponic stations. Marine life clinging to the hulls of ships. Moving silently from warmer waters into untouched fjords. The seal is breaking. The old world is returning. But so is the new, and the two do not mix. Some believe this clash is an echo of what came before, that in some age now lost, a similar invasion occurred, not of species, but of knowledge, that something arrived, or awoke, and changed the balance. And the earth responded with ice, a reset, a covering, to preserve what must not be lost, or to bury what must not be found. The parallels are not coincidence. The temperature rises, the treaty holds,